Thank you very much, and greetings to everyone who has come to our YouTube channel. We always update the newest and hottest issues to bring to you. Below is the detailed content. Donald Trump's military campaign targeting Iran could take a dangerous turn. When the news broke that the United States and Israel had entered into conflict with Iran, one of the first questions many people asked was how Russia and China would respond. According to the Daily Beast, Russia and China have long been close partners of Tehran. However, it seems that President Donald Trump is not too concerned about the possibility of their involvement. Mr. Trump said that we have no information about this matter, but even if they actually do so, it would not be very effective. From what has happened, even if that information is correct, it would not create much impact. U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth even appeared quite indifferent when asked whether Russia and China might get involved. He said they are really not a factor that needs to be considered here. But recent developments suggest that assessment may be mistaken. The Washington Post recently reported that Russia appears to be providing Iran with high-quality intelligence about U.S. military activities in the Middle East, including the locations of aircraft and warships. Sources say this data also includes command and control centers, including a base in Qatar, where 6 U.S. soldiers were killed in a drone attack. The Daily Beast commented that this is a worrying development in a war that does not seem to be going according to plan if Washington actually had a plan from the beginning. Of course, U.S. military leaders such as Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Dan Kane and the generals of the U.S. Central Command clearly understand their military capabilities. The United States still possesses the most powerful war machine in the world. Russia's involvement is a far more serious issue. One ironic detail is that the United States once had to turn to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for help in countering Iran's Shahed drones, the same type of weapon that Russia also uses in the conflict in Ukraine. However, the Ukrainian leader emphasized that such assistance would only be provided if it did not weaken Ukraine's defense capabilities and if it contributed to diplomatic efforts aimed at ending the conflict with Russia. Within Washington, there have also been warnings. At a meeting at the White House last week, General Dan Kane reportedly warned about the risks of engaging in a conflict without full support from allies, as well as the possibility of weapon shortages after a long period of aid to Ukraine. Meanwhile, several Gulf allies, including Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, said they were not adequately warned before Iranian retaliatory missiles landed on their territory. European allies such as Spain and the United Kingdom were also only informed at the last minute that the United States wanted to use their military bases. Meanwhile, India was reportedly very angry after the United States sank the Iranian destroyer Iris Alvand, a ship that was participating in an international exercise with the Indian Navy. All of this creates the impression that the U.S. administration has entered the war in a reckless manner. Mr. Trump himself once described the decision simply as a feeling. Even if the United States may currently hold the advantage, the risks remain very high. An opponent pushed into a corner will become increasingly desperate and may call on allies for help. At that point, the worst fears of the Cold War era could return. The lesson from history is very clear. It does not take many conditions to start a major war. And if a third world war were to occur, it could be much shorter but also infinitely more deadly. Iran challenges the U.S. to protect oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz and reveals a still-hidden stockpile of hypersonic missiles. U.S. President Donald Trump is considering having the U.S. Navy escort oil tankers through the strategic Strait of Hormuz as energy prices surge sharply. It is reported that oil prices in the United States last week increased by 28% to more than $86 per barrel. Brent crude prices also rose by 22% to around $89 per barrel after Iran attacked oil tankers, causing shipping through the Strait of Hormuz to nearly come to a halt. Wall Street analysts warn that if the vital strait were closed by Iran for a long period, Brent oil prices could exceed $100 per barrel, as high energy prices could push the global economy into the risk of recession. The Strait of Hormuz is narrow but extremely important because it is the only route for oil tankers entering and leaving the Persian Gulf. Under normal conditions, about 100 oil tankers and cargo ships pass through the Strait of Hormuz every day, but the conflict with Iran has caused shipping traffic to almost stop. Oil analyst Mark Williams of Kepler said that about 400 oil tankers are currently stranded in the Gulf due to security concerns. Therefore, President Donald Trump's statement aims to escort oil tankers and provide political risk insurance for ship owners. Many experts believe that the U.S. leader's bold plan will be very difficult to succeed because of the large number of ships and serious security risks. Expert Mark believes that even if the U.S. Navy participates in escorting moving each group of ships through the strait would still take a very long time. For its part, Iran affirmed that it is ready to wait for the appearance of U.S. forces passing through the Strait of Hormuz. The spokesman for the Khatam al-Anbiya headquarters, Lieutenant Colonel Ibrahim Zolfagari, warned that the United States should remember the 1987 burning incident involving the supertanker Bridgeton, as well as recent attacks targeting oil tankers near the strait. Iran has not yet launched its real strike. Its hypersonic missile arsenal is still waiting for the decisive moment. In an interview with the newspaper Parliamentskaya Gazeta, Igor Korochenko, director of the Center for Analysis of World Arms Trade in Russia, stated that Iran has many hypersonic missiles in its arsenal. However, they are being preserved until weaker missiles weaken the opponent's air defense systems. Expert Korochenko emphasized that Iran is currently focusing mainly on attacks through tactical missile systems and kamikaze drones such as the Shahed 136. Tehran looks like the apocalypse. Israel declares it will hunt down the successor to Khamenei. Residents of Tehran said the city feels like the apocalypse after new Israeli airstrikes targeting oil storage facilities triggered a massive fireball in the Iranian capital. One resident told CNN that the sky was also full of clouds and dark, so it felt as if we were suffocating. The person said they witnessed an explosion lighting up the entire night sky. Earlier, a CNN reporter at the scene said that Tehran woke up in the morning covered by thick black clouds with rainwater turning black after Israeli airstrikes. The Israeli military said it attacked fuel facilities in Tehran on the evening of the 8th. According to the IRCS, Iranian Red Crescent Society, the Iranian Red Crescent also warned residents to be cautious, saying that rain could become toxic after the explosions at oil facilities. This type of rain could cause chemical burns on the skin and damage to the lungs. In a post on Telegram, the agency issued the following instructions. In the event that rain falls after the explosions, people must absolutely not leave their homes. If you are outdoors, immediately seek shelter under a roof made of concrete or metal and avoid taking shelter under trees. If rainwater comes into contact with the skin, do not rub the affected area and only rinse it continuously with cold running water. Immediately change any clothes that have been soaked by the rain and place them in a sealed bag. Meanwhile, the Israeli military has warned that it will target the successor to Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, as well as those involved in selecting this figure. Israeli military spokesperson Avichai Adrayi wrote on social media that Israel will continue to pursue the successor and anyone attempting to appoint that person. The Israeli military declared, "We warn everyone who is planning to participate in meetings to choose the successor. We will not hesitate to target you as well. Consider this a warning." Earlier, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz also warned that he would assassinate any Iranian leader chosen to succeed Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Writing on the social media platform X, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz emphasized that any leader chosen by the Iranian regime to continue pursuing plans to destroy Israel, threaten the United States, the free world, and countries in the region, and suppress the Iranian people will certainly become an assassination target regardless of their name or where they hide. The minister said that he and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have instructed the Israeli military to prepare and act by all means to carry out this mission as an inseparable part of the objectives of Operation Rising Lion, which is being carried out in parallel with the U.S. campaign Operation Wrathful Storm. Mr. Katz said, "We will continue to act with full force together with our American partners to crush the regime's capabilities and create conditions for the Iranian people to overthrow and replace it." Israel's defense ministry has just announced that Abu al-Qasim Babai, who had recently been appointed head of the military office of Iran's supreme cleric, has been killed. The information was released during a security meeting at Israel's defense headquarters in Tel Aviv. In a statement, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz welcomed the operation and praised the Israeli military for what he described as an important success. He also urged security forces to continue targeting Iranian officials involved in direct military activities against Israel. Mr. Babai took over the position of head of the military office of Iran's supreme cleric after his predecessor was killed in the first airstrike carried out by Israel in coordination with the United States against Iranian targets at the end of February. The Israeli military said Babai was responsible for coordinating attack operations against Israel. At the meeting, Israeli military spokesperson Daniel Hagari also said the country's forces had launched a major strike destroying the Air Force headquarters of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, the body that commands missile and drone attacks against Israel and U.S. bases in the region. Earlier this month, the Israel Defense Forces, IDF, said they had eliminated 40 senior commanders, calling it a historic strike made possible by military intelligence. Most of the commanders were eliminated in simultaneous strikes on 2 separate locations, the IDF said, but did not provide the names of all those killed. The Israel Defense Forces said the list includes Iran's Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Abdolrahim Mousavi. Iranian state media reported that Mousavi and other senior Iranian security leaders were among those killed in the U.S. and Israeli airstrikes. The Israeli military also said it destroyed Iran's air defense systems in western and central Iran, as its air force established air superiority over Tehran. The Israel Defense Forces said the Israeli Air Force continues to operate extensively in both defense and offense, with the aim of eliminating threats to the State of Israel. Internal divisions in Iran emerge as the president apologizes to neighboring countries. Iran's leadership is showing signs of internal fractures, with divisions between hardliners and pragmatists exposed following President Masoud Pezeshkian's apology. Earlier, Masoud Pezeshkian said, "I apologize to neighboring countries that were attacked by Iran. We had no intention of attacking neighboring countries. As I have said many times, they are our brothers." The Iranian leader added, "The temporary 3-member leadership council currently running Iran has communicated with the armed forces that from now on they must not attack neighboring countries or launch missiles unless those countries allow attacks against us from their territory." However, a few hours later, after fierce criticism from Iran's hardline faction, Pezeshkian issued another statement affirming that Iran did not attack friendly neighboring countries during this war. This time, no apology appeared. Gulf countries have reported recent airstrikes and battles. According to the New York Times, this verbal dispute reflects divisions within Iran's leadership following the death of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Alex Vatanka, director of the Iran program at the Middle East Institute, said that while hardliners seek revenge for Khamenei, pragmatists still hope for diplomatic efforts to resolve the conflict. However, Ali Larijani, one of Iran's top security officials, delivered a speech on national television calling for unity and denying disagreements within the leadership. He also said, U.S. President Donald Trump is paying the price. Pezeshkian also said the Iranian army and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, had acted independently throughout the crisis. The apology quickly met opposition from hardliners within the IRGC and the clerical elite, forcing Pezeshkian to partially retreat. Gholam Hossein Mohseni Aj, a member of the Transitional Council, condemned Pezeshkian's statement without mentioning him by name. The hardline head of the judiciary, Mohseni Aj, declared that intense attacks on these targets would continue. Meanwhile, lawmaker Hamid Rasai even bluntly stated that Pezeshkian's stance was unprofessional, weak, and unacceptable. Pezeshkian made these remarks as Tehran faces a leadership vacuum. According to Reuters, all senior figures remain determined to defend the nation, but there are clearly disagreements over strategy. It is currently unclear who is truly overseeing Iran's military response. A sea of fire engulfs the capital Tehran after the devastating strikes on oil depots by the United States and Israel. According to Al Jazeera, the 9th day of the war between the United States, Israel, and Iran recorded a series of new developments as airstrikes continued to expand. One of the most striking images of the day was a phenomenon described as a river of fire appearing on the streets of Tehran. According to videos circulating on social media, oil leaking from destroyed fuel depots flowed into the city's drainage system and then ignited along a stretch of road. Earlier, Iran's oil ministry confirmed that the strikes hit multiple fuel storage facilities, including sites in the city of Karaj, in Alborz province west of Tehran. Meanwhile, attacks continued to spread to other parts of Iran. The Tasnim news agency reported that U.S. and Israeli aircraft struck several factories and a horse riding club in East Azerbaijan province, killing at least 11 people and injuring many others. The Israeli military on the same day also announced it had attacked an airport in Isfahan and destroyed several Iranian F-14 fighter jets. Israel said the strike came after it previously claimed to have destroyed 16 aircraft belonging to the IRGC at Mehrabad Airport in Tehran. In Israel, Energy Minister Eli Cohen said that attacks on Iran's oil facilities are only the first stage of escalation. Israel launches airstrikes on Iranian Special Forces commanders. The Times of Israel reported that the Israel Defense Forces had carried out an airstrike targeting commanders of the Lebanon Corps under the Quds Force of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps in Beirut, Lebanon. The IDF statement said that commanders of the Lebanese Corps belonging to Unit C had carried out many terrorist plots on Lebanese territory against the state and people of Israel in parallel with the activities of the IRGC in Iran. The Lebanese Corps serves as a communication axis between the Hezbollah armed group and the government in Tehran, and at the same time acts as a supporting body for strengthening and building Hezbollah's forces. In a related development reported by Qatar's Al Jazeera channel, the Israeli military issued a new threat targeting Iranian leaders, stating that they would pursue anyone who succeeds Ali Khamenei. In a social media post in Persian, the Israeli military also threatened to pursue anyone who attempts to appoint a successor, referring to Iran's Assembly of Experts, the body responsible for selecting the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Earlier, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz also warned that any Iranian leader chosen to succeed Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei would be assassinated. Writing on the social media platform X, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz emphasized that any leader chosen by the Iranian regime to continue pursuing plans to destroy Israel, threaten the United States, the free world, and countries in the region, and suppress the Iranian people will certainly become an assassination target regardless of their name or where they hide. The minister said that he and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had instructed the Israeli military to prepare and act by all means necessary to carry out this mission as an inseparable part of the objectives of Operation Rising Lion, which is being conducted in parallel with the U.S. operation called Terrible Fury. Mr. Katz said, "We will continue to act with full force together with our American partners to crush the regime's capabilities and create conditions for the Iranian people to overthrow and replace it." Recently, the Israel Defense Forces IDF said it had carried out an airstrike on the headquarters of Iran's Aerospace Force in Tehran. The headquarters of Iran's Aerospace Force is believed to be used by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, to develop satellite activities and missile technology that could be related to the Intercontinental Ballistic Missile ICBM program. According to the IDF, the targets attacked included the IRGC Space Command Center, which operates and controls the Noor-2 satellite launched into orbit in 2022. Israel believes the facility plays an important role in research activities, data reception, and signal transmission for Iran's space program. Israeli officials have long expressed concern that Iran's satellite launch technology could be used for military purposes, particularly the development of long-range ballistic missiles. According to them, advances in this field could help Tehran enhance its ICBM launch capability while improving its ability to monitor targets in Israel and countries in the region. For many years, Israel and Western countries have viewed Iran's satellite launches as a potential threat due to the dual-use nature of the technology, which serves civilian purposes but can also support missile or nuclear weapons programs. At the end of 2025, Iran simultaneously launched 3 satellites developed domestically. In the latest wave of airstrikes, the Israeli Air Force also attacked dozens of other military targets across Tehran. According to the IDF, the attacks destroyed about 50 ammunition bunkers at a base of Iran's internal security forces, along with several facilities of the Basij militia, the headquarters of internal security forces, and a complex linked to the IRGC ground forces. Meanwhile, the U.S. Central Command CENTCOM also issued a safety warning to Iranian civilians, stating that the Iranian military is conducting military activities from densely populated areas. According to CENTCOM, Iran has launched UAVs and ballistic missiles from locations near residential areas in cities such as Dezful, Isfahan, and Shiraz. The United States warned that locations used for military purposes could become legitimate targets under the laws of war. At the same time, Iran carried out several retaliatory attacks against Israel, including targeting the city of Tel Aviv. At least 6 people were injured, including 1 in critical condition. At 2 impact sites in central Israel after Iran launched ballistic missiles, Israel accused Iran of using ballistic missiles carrying cluster warheads. The Strait of Hormuz section. The United States received a bad omen after Mr. Trump's statement about the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. President Donald Trump recently confidently stated that he had resolved the issue at the Strait of Hormuz. However, Iran declared that it welcomes and awaits the United States there. Experts say the United States and Israel still face many challenges in their goal of neutralizing Tehran's naval power. The issue at the Strait of Hormuz is also not easy to resolve quickly because Iran has 2 naval forces. The airstrikes carried out by the United States and Israel so far have mainly targeted Iran's regular navy, the IRIN. This force belongs to the Islamic Republic of Iran, army known as Artesh. This force focuses on traditional naval operations, operates large warships, and is one of Iran's two parallel naval forces. The second naval force belongs to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC. This force specializes in asymmetric confrontation tactics. They use many small, flexible vessels, delivering sudden and unpredictable strikes in a guerrilla-style manner. The IRGC Navy is primarily responsible for controlling the strategic Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf area. According to experts, the United States has only weakened the naval forces of Artesh. If it wants to ensure normal maritime routes through Hormuz, it must remember that Iran still has the IRGC naval forces. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, has challenged President Donald Trump to deploy U.S. warships to escort oil tankers. IRGC spokesperson Ali Mohammed Naini declared that Iran welcomes the escort of oil tankers and the presence of U.S. forces in the Strait of Hormuz. We are waiting for them. Mr. Nicholas Carl, an expert from the Critical Threats Project in Washington, commented that sinking ships belonging to Iran's regular navy is a highlight in the U.S. military campaign. However, Iran still has many ways to create a crisis for shipping routes through the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf. According to the New York Times, commercial ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz continue to face threats. At least 10 commercial ships have been attacked while attempting to pass through the strait since the conflict began. Most of these ships reported being hit by unidentified flying objects. This suggests that naval UAVs or small vessels may have carried out these attacks. Analysis section. According to military analyst and former U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis on the social network X, U.S. actions in Iran do not advance military objectives, but only increase hatred. He wrote, "If the goal is simply to cause suffering to civilians, then it will certainly succeed. But even so, does this help the military objectives of the United States?" According to this expert, U.S. attacks on Iran are producing the opposite effect, helping unite the Iranian people around the government that Washington opposes. It can be said that the war between the United States and Israel against Iran is placing President Donald Trump in a strategic dilemma. According to Tribune domestically, Mr. Trump is under considerable political pressure as he faces controversies and accusations related to documents in a case file while the Middle East is engulfed in fighting. According to the article, the war could move in two directions. One, parties may pressure the United States and Israel to stop the bombing and return to dialogue. Two, or they may join the United States and Israel to end the war through military force. Many experts believe the first scenario is more likely. For Iran, its choice is very clear. The country sees this as a war of survival against external aggression. The United States and Israel are escalating the conflict with the aim of weakening Iran's military capabilities and creating political change in Tehran. However, both also understand that they cannot allow the war to last long because it would cause major domestic consequences and affect the global economy. According to Tribune, the United States is repeating major mistakes it made in previous wars. The first mistake is that the speed of the war is exceeding policy. The second mistake is misjudging the society and psychology of the Iranian people, similar to what happened in Afghanistan and Iraq. Iran has a tightly organized religious political system centered around the supreme leader and the clerical establishment, along with a strong national identity. According to Tribune, Mr. Trump will eventually have to make a decision: continue escalating the war to avoid being seen as failing, or withdraw and accept the domestic political cost. This is the strategic dilemma that the Trump administration is facing in the war with Iran, condemning the attack by the United States and Israel. But why didn't Russia and China support Iran? Russia and China, Iran's two largest diplomatic partners, criticized the campaign carried out by the United States and Israel, which caused more than 1,000 deaths, calling it a clear violation of international law. Russian President Vladimir Putin also criticized the assassination of Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei. Meanwhile, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi told his Israeli counterpart Gideon Sa'ar that the use of force cannot truly resolve problems, while calling on all parties to avoid escalating the situation. When the attacks broke out, Russia and China also jointly called for an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council. According to analysts, this response reflects the close relationship between Iran, Russia, and China. Moscow and Beijing have signed bilateral agreements and expanded coordination through joint naval exercises, demonstrating a united front against what they call a U.S.-led international order that has long sought to isolate them. However, neither country has shown any intention of intervening militarily to support Iran. In January 2025, Russia and Iran signed a comprehensive strategic partnership treaty covering areas from trade and military cooperation to science, culture, and education. This agreement strengthens defense and intelligence coordination while supporting projects such as a transport corridor linking Russia with the Gulf region through Iran. The two countries even conducted joint military exercises in the Indian Ocean at the end of February, just 1 week before the United States and Israel attacked Iran. However, when fighting between the United States, Israel, and Iran began, Moscow had no obligation to respond because the treaty does not include a mutual defense clause, meaning a formal military alliance has not yet been formed between them. Expert Andrei Kortunov, former Director General of the Russian International Affairs Council, said that the mutual defense treaty Russia signed with North Korea in 2024 is an example of a more binding agreement regarding military support. According to him, with North Korea, Russia is obligated to participate in any conflict the country becomes involved in. But with Iran, the treaty only states that the two sides will avoid hostile actions if the other is engaged in combat. Mr. Kortunov believes that for this reason, Russia is unlikely to take direct military action to support Iran because the risks are too great. He also believes Moscow appears to be prioritizing the United States' intermediary role in the Ukraine conflict. In the past, Russia has taken a similar approach by criticizing the United States, but not intervening militarily in other cases. Although the treaty does not require Russia to intervene, Mr. Kortunov said some voices in Tehran have expressed disappointment because they expected Russia to do more beyond diplomatic moves at the United Nations or other multilateral forums. As for China, in 2021, China and Iran signed a 25-year cooperation agreement to expand relations in many areas, especially energy, while helping Iran participate in the Belt and Road Initiative led by China. Zhu Feng, a researcher at Tsinghua University, said this relationship in Beijing is viewed as pragmatic and stable. She said that politically, the two countries frequently exchange views, while economically, they also cooperate deeply, and many Chinese companies have investments in Iran. However, she emphasized that Beijing always sets clear limits on this relationship, especially regarding military involvement. She said the Chinese government always adheres to the principle of non-interference in the internal affairs of other countries, and she does not think China will send weapons to Iran. Instead, China's role is more likely to focus on diplomacy and crisis management. Experts believe Beijing is trying to engage in dialogue with the United States and Gulf countries to keep the situation stable. The clarity in this relationship also helps build trust with Tehran. China speaks out about Trump's visit amid the Iran conflict. Member of the Political Bureau and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi responded to questions from the press about how the joint military campaign by the United States and Israel against Iran could affect the possibility of President Donald Trump visiting China, as well as Beijing's expectations for the visit and the development of bilateral relations. China's Global Times quoted Foreign Minister Wang Yi at a press conference on the 8th as affirming that China and the United States need to maintain mutual respect, uphold the principle of peaceful coexistence, and move toward prospects of mutually beneficial cooperation. This serves the interests of the people of both countries and meets the expectations of the international community. At the same press conference, Foreign Minister Wang Yi reaffirmed Beijing's call to immediately stop military activities and return to the negotiating table. He emphasized that war with Iran does not benefit any side. In addition, Wang Yi stated, "The Middle East is sinking into a sea of fire. I must say this is a war that should not happen." He also condemned the abuse of force and actions that violate international law. Wang Yi affirmed that the arbitrary use of force does not prove strength. According to NBC News in the United States, although U.S.-China relations have faced many challenges due to the tariff policies of President Donald Trump's administration, the American leader still often refers to his excellent relationship with Chinese President Xi Jinping. The two leaders have spoken by phone twice since their meeting in October 2025. On the 8th, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi said it is encouraging that the leaders of the two countries have set an example by maintaining positive interaction at the highest level. They have created an important strategic guarantee for improving and continuing the progress of China-U.S. relations while bringing the relationship back to a stable state. After many ups and downs, President Donald Trump and President Xi Jinping are expected to meet about 4 times this year, beginning with the American leader's 3-day visit to China, starting on the 31st of the month. After that, there is information that Xi Jinping will visit the United States and may also attend the G20 summit of the world's leading emerging and developed economies in Miami in December. Meanwhile, in November, Mr. Trump may attend the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum in 2026, also known as the APEC 2026 Summit in Shenzhen, China. According to Wang Yi, 2026 will be an important year for U.S.-China relations. The Chinese foreign minister highlighted the high-level exchange program that has already been planned. What both sides need to do now is prepare carefully, create an appropriate environment, manage existing risks, and eliminate unnecessary disruptive factors. The UK Ministry of Defence is reportedly preparing to deploy the air defence destroyer HMS Duncan of the Type 45 class to the island nation of Cyprus in order to strengthen the protection of British military facilities in the region. In particular, this includes RAF Akrotiri Air Base, one of London's most important strategic bases in the Middle East. This move comes after several reports indicated that Iranian drones had targeted the Akrotiri base amid intensified U.S. and Israeli attacks on Iran. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, has carried out several waves of retaliatory attacks using ballistic missiles and UAVs against U.S. military bases along with partners in the region. Not only the United Kingdom, but several other NATO countries such as France, Germany, and Greece are also increasing their military presence in the Middle East. However, the fact that the air defense systems of the United States and Israel have repeatedly faced large-scale attacks from Iran has raised questions about the real defensive capability of Western forces against saturation attack tactics. Using missiles and UAVs, HMS Duncan belongs to the Type 45 destroyer class, a line of warships specifically designed for fleet air defense missions. The ship uses the Sea Viper air defense system with Aster missiles to protect naval formations from threats from aircraft or cruise missiles. However, this specialization also means that the Type 45 lacks many other offensive capabilities. The ship is not equipped with land attack cruise missiles and also does not have significant capability to attack targets at sea. In other words, it is almost a purely air defense platform. Even in the air defense role, the capabilities of the Type 45 are considered limited when compared with other modern destroyers. One of the biggest weaknesses is the relatively small number of vertical launch cells. This significant difference means Type 45 warships could easily become overloaded if forced to deal with saturation attacks involving large numbers of targets, especially suicide drones, a type of weapon Iran has repeatedly deployed in the hundreds during previous military campaigns. Another serious weakness of the Type 45 destroyer is that it has almost no capability to defend against ballistic missiles. While U.S. Arleigh Burke-class destroyers are equipped with the Aegis system and interceptor missiles such as SM-2, SM-3, and SM-6 capable of countering ballistic missiles, Type 45 ships are only equipped with the Sea Viper system using Aster missiles, which are mainly designed to counter aircraft and cruise missiles. This means British warships cannot effectively deal on their own with ballistic missiles, one of the main weapons in Iran's arsenal. Dr. Siddharth Kaushal, a researcher at the Royal United Services Institute RUSI, once emphasized that the Type 45 destroyer lacks the capability to counter anti-ship ballistic missiles, a threat that is becoming increasingly common in modern warfare. Meanwhile, Iran is considered one of the countries possessing one of the largest arsenals of ballistic missiles and attack UAVs in the world. Missile systems such as Khorramshahr, Sajil, and Shahab can strike targets at distances ranging from hundreds to thousands of kilometers. At the same time, Iran has also developed a series of low-cost suicide drones that can be launched in swarms to overwhelm enemy air defense systems. Saturation attack tactics using UAVs and missiles have been repeatedly used by Iran and its allied forces in the Middle East. In that context, a warship carrying only 48 air defense missiles like the Type 45 could quickly run out of ammunition if faced with large-scale attacks. The deployment of HMS Duncan to the Middle East has been assessed by many experts as more of a deterrent and symbolic move rather than a real shift in the military balance. If tensions continue to escalate, the ship itself could even become a high-value target for Iran's advanced anti-ship or ballistic missiles. Military experts emphasize that the greatest challenge for any ground invasion force targeting Iran lies in the country's geography. Surrounded by massive mountain ranges, vast central plateaus, and harsh deserts, Iran's territory has long been likened to a natural fortress, where geography and military power together play an irreplaceable role in shaping its defense strategy. According to experts, Iran's most formidable natural shield is the mountain ranges running along its borders. The Zagros Mountains form a massive natural wall about 1,600 kilometers long along Iran's western border with Iraq and Turkey. Many peaks here rise above 4,000 meters, making it nearly impossible to deploy large-scale armored forces into Iranian territory. Steep terrain, narrow valleys, and easily defensible passes create severe difficulties for any large military campaign. This means tanks, armored vehicles, and artillery would be forced to move through narrow natural corridors, choke points that can easily become traps where defending forces control surrounding high ground and launch ambushes. The high mountains also create many radar and visibility blind spots. The Alborz mountain range in the north serves as a guardian of the capital Tehran and key economic regions. This terrain forms a rocky barrier separating the Caspian coastal area from the dry central plateau. The range stretches about 600 kilometers along the southern coast of the Caspian Sea from the border with Azerbaijan to areas near Turkmenistan. Steep slopes and deep valleys here make a ground invasion from the north nearly impossible. Any northern approach is effectively blocked, allowing Iran to establish air defense systems and missile depots deep inside the mountains that are extremely difficult to destroy with long-range airstrikes. Beyond acting as a natural defensive barrier, the Alborz Range also provides an ideal environment for building underground military facilities. Many defense experts believe Iran has taken advantage of the rocky terrain in this region to construct weapons depots, missile cities, and command centers deep inside the mountains. Even if invading forces manage to cross the Zagros Mountains, they still cannot immediately reach Iran's centers of power. To move into central Iran, an invading force must first cross the border mountain ranges and then advance through narrow passes and rugged plateaus. This means attacking forces would have to fight continuously in unfavorable terrain, often fighting uphill from lower ground to higher ground where defenders hold the advantage. And Iran's plateaus also make logistical deployment extremely difficult. Supply lines would be long and vulnerable to ambush, while natural routes are often limited by complex mountainous terrain. In addition, Iran's central basin contains deep deserts that are extremely difficult to cross. The Dasht-e Desert is one of the most dangerous places in the world for heavy armored vehicles, because beneath its surface lie deep and unstable salt marshes. A nearly 70-ton M1A2 Abrams tank that strays off the narrow trails would immediately break through the salt crust and be swallowed by mud. Meanwhile, in the southeast, the Dasht-e-Lut Desert holds the record for the highest surface temperature ever recorded on Earth, reaching 70.7 degrees Celsius. This is an extremely hostile environment. At such temperatures, electronic equipment on UAVs and missile control systems can easily suffer heat shock. From a geostrategic perspective, Iran has virtually no easily accessible gateway for a large-scale ground invasion. In addition to controlling the Strait of Hormuz, the country also possesses coastal terrain that is highly resistant to amphibious assaults, fragmented by numerous shallow bays, mudflats, and submerged coral reefs. This creates ideal conditions for the asymmetric naval tactics of the IRGC. The force has developed a doctrine using speedboats, mini-submarines, drones, and anti-ship missiles to counter larger naval fleets. These characteristics force large enemy aircraft carriers and destroyers to stay far offshore to avoid running aground. This unintentionally lengthens the travel distance for amphibious helicopters and smaller transport vessels, making them easier targets before they even reach Iran's coastal defenses. If an opposing military wanted to establish a beachhead to move supplies inland, it would have to pass through deep-water ports such as Bandar Abbas or Bushehr. However, these ports lie directly within the targeting range of shore-to-sea missile batteries concealed in coastal caves ready to fire at any moment. In short, for any expeditionary force advancing into Iran's interior is not only a confrontation with its military and weapons, but also a battle against the harshness of nature and the treacherous terrain. Why Iran was able to paralyze the all-seeing eye radar network in the Middle East. Satellite images recently released by Airbus show that the AN/TPY-2 radar, often described as the all-seeing eye of the U.S. made THAAD Terminal High-Altitude Missile Defense System, was burned black after Iran's strike on the Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan. However, this may not be the only expensive early warning radar hit in Iran's retaliatory strikes. Press TV reported that Iran's attacks also destroyed THAAD radar systems and supporting infrastructure in the United Arab Emirates, UAE. THAAD radar at the airbase in Al Kharj, Saudi Arabia, and the USAN/FPS 132 radar system with an operational range of about 5,000 kilometers deployed in Qatar were also reportedly targeted. So far, there has been no independent confirmation from the United States or Qatar regarding these claims. Without the AN/TPY-2 radar providing tracking data and fire control solutions, the launchers and interceptor missiles of each THAAD battery would be unable to effectively counter incoming threats. The successful destruction of heavily protected targets at distances exceeding 800 kilometers demonstrates technological capabilities by Iran that many Western analysts had previously underestimated. The attacks also suggest that Iran has conducted sophisticated intelligence-gathering operations for many years without detection, enabling it to build detailed target profiles of facilities across multiple countries. According to expert assessments, Russian intelligence support and the overload of U.S. and allied air defense networks may have contributed to Iran successfully striking a series of expensive radar systems in the Middle East. Specifically, according to the military analysis site, Defense Security Asia, the destruction of the AN/TPY-2 radar shows that Iran has the capability to precisely locate and strike high-value targets located in heavily protected sites. One explanation mentioned by experts is assistance from Russia. A few days earlier, the Washington Post cited 3 officials familiar with intelligence matters as saying that Russia had provided Iran with information about the locations of U.S. military assets in the Middle East, including warships and aircraft, since the conflict began. According to a CNN source, much of the intelligence data Russia supplied to Iran consisted of imagery from its network of reconnaissance satellites in orbit. Russia's assistance became even more important as Iran's ability to determine enemy positions had declined following repeated strikes by the United States and Israel.